My name is Michael Turner. I'm the Senior Aboriginal Practitioner with Aboriginal Community Connect and Kalana Tampa Wadley. I have a very strong, significant cultural role with uniting communities. I'm also involved with the RAP program, which is the Reconciliation Annual Plan that we've put out for uniting communities. And I'm also involved with the ATSI Governance Committee, and I also run the combined ATSI Forum as chairperson. With my background as an Aboriginal person, I'm also a member of the stolen generation of families that were removed from their mothers here in South Australia. I was born in 1956, and when I was born, I was removed from the hospital at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And my mum, she had 13 children. Each and every one of us was removed as my siblings were born. They were removed and placed into care to children's homes. I was placed after birth at Crystal Brook Home as a baby, and that's where I grew up until the age of roughly 5. I I lived at the Crystal Brook Home for those years. Never met any Aboriginal people until one day an auntie came to visit me, and the auntie was my mum's older sister. She had planned to remove me from the home, and she was allowed to because she was married to a white man, and he was a worker on the railways at Port Lincoln where they lived. And she came and picked me up when I was about 4 years, roughly 8 months, and I grew up with her at Port Lincoln, went to school there up until the age of about 11 years of age. The age of about 10 years of age. She had made arrangements for me to come to this place, Port Germain, and where I'm now, this is the old mission block of the Nookana people. So I lived with an auntie called Margaret, and Auntie Margaret, she fostered me over from my auntie from Port Lincoln, because my auntie had passed away with a chronic heart condition. So living here at Port Germain, I had with Margaret, who I now call Mum, who grew me up. I went to school here at Port Germain. I went to high school here at Port Pirie, and I found out later in life that my original mother, had 13 children, but all were removed and placed into care, to foster care, in and out of homes. And I found out that my mother had 3 sets of twins, and I thought that was uncanny. And this is later in life during my working career, and that I found that the 13 children she had were all removed from her straight from the hospital. The 3 sets of twins, I was able to track down the first lot of twins, a brother that was older than me called Ian, and his twin brother was Eli. Unfortunately, Eli died at birth. Then I was able to see the second lot of twins, Peter and Paul, and I was able to visit them when I was a bit older, when I was in my 20s, I was able to find out who my brothers and sisters were, mostly all brothers. There was only 2 sisters. One of the sisters is still alive today. The other sister, she was a twin, but she died at birth, and it's only been 9 years ago that I found out who the third lot of twins were. And unfortunately, those 2 twins, Anne was a girl, but she died 4 days after birth, and Kingsley, his name is a Joseph at birth, and then when he was adopted out after 4 months of birth, but I was able to track down who the lady was that looked after him and fostered him. But when I finally was able to have a discussion with her about where he was and all that, unfortunately she told me that he passed away, and he actually drowned fishing down at Goolwa Beach with a friend. But I was able to sit down with the friend at that time, which was his adopted brother, and go over the life that he lived. But during my time as a Stolen Generation member, I was so grateful that I was able to live at Port Germain with an auntie, Margaret, who married my Uncle Desmond. And I grew up with my cousins here and my sisters, but now I refer to them as my brothers and sisters. I lived a very fortunate life. When I graduated from high school, I joined the police force. I was there for 3.5 years, and then I moved up to Alice Springs. I have 4 children. I have 2 older children from my first wife in Alice Springs, and I have 2 children from my current wife, Maxine. And my ambition in life was to see my children fully supported, fully educated, and live a life that possibly I didn't have. And I'm so proud that my children are doing so well, which they are. Growing up here at Port Germain has been a very wonderful experience as part of the Nukunnu Nation here, and like when I look back at myself as a member of the Stolen Generation, I come from 2 native title regions. On my grandfather's side, I'm Cookatha, and the Cookatha area is north of Port Augusta, which runs right up to around to the APY area, south of Kibipiti, and out to a place called Andamuka, Lake Torrens. I was involved with the Cookatha Native Title group over the years, but my first work that I do is with the Nukunnu. Our group, the Nukunnu people, we got our native title last year in October, and now with that we're just looking at setting up our foundation. Our organisation is called the Nukunnu Wabmathura Organisation Incorporated, and Wabma means snake, so Nukunnu people, they come from the snake dreaming. The snake is their first totem, and then there are other totems that also belong to Nukunnu, but the main one is the snake. Like my daughter Jess, the youngest one, she's our artist in the family, and when you come through our country, you know, sometimes you'll see her artwork. You'll see it in Pirrie, you'll see it at Crystal Brook, you'll see it at Jamestown. She's done some designs at Jamestown on the wind farms. So if you're ever over at Jamestown, you can see some of her artwork on the wind farms themselves. I'm involved with our Nukunnu Wabmathura organisation. I'm the vice chairperson of the organisation, of the Native Title Organisation for Nukunnu, and I'm also looked up as a Nukunnu elder. And I'm sort of keeping the work happening from going back from what our mum did. She was with us when we first developed our Nukunu native title application going back in 2006, and some of our elders were with us when we also lodged our first native title application back then. But unfortunately now our elders, most of them have all passed away, our mums passed away, but there's still me and the brothers and a couple of sisters, as well as some of the other families belonging to Nukunu that are now full stream ahead with developing our Nukunu native title, as well as our Nukunu culture. Nukunu country, where I'm telling you my story here is we are right in the heart of Nukunu country. This is the Bruder Creek, and this is part of the old Nukunu mission. I always bring my grannies here, my children, we come here and we have barbecues, we have a walk around, but I tell them that this is their own country. They own this country and they're all part of this country. The Nukunu boundary runs up from south of Crystal Brook, a place called Rocky River. From there it runs over to north of Port Broughton. So that's our southern boundary. Our eastern boundary runs from south of Crystal Brook right over towards Jamestown, then up to Orroroo, then it comes up to the northern part, which is south of Hawker, and then it comes back around to the Gulf area around Port Augusta. And it's we had to give up some parts of our country on the western side of the Gulf around Port Augusta. We had some disputes with our neighbour, Bungala, but we actually pulled our boundary back to the Gulf around Port Augusta, but we still have some heritage sites on the other side of the Gulf which we're allowed to go and see and visit. But most of our main heritage sites is this area here, around Bruder Creek and up through the hills of the Southern Flinders. We have lots of traditional areas that we look after, and we also are starting to, now that we have native title, we have national parks and wildlife that we're doing agreements with other organisations with the state government like SA Water, and we're sort of paving the way of what our elders wanted us to do, and that's look after country. So part of this region here where we're sitting now is our last old uncle that lived here, and he farmed this area around me. He had sheep, horses, he had a bit of a market garden, and that was old Uncle Prob, we used to call him. His name was Eric Bramfield, and he was the last Nukunu member to actually farm this little area around us. But this is all part of the old Nukunu mission, and there was even a church here. There was lots of houses there, and I'm talking about the pre-1900s. And I think they closed the mission here around about 1930-ish, possibly after that, and then they moved a lot of the families that was living here to Port Germain. Our grandmother was given the first house in Port Germain, and then later on the second house went to my mum Margaret, and then other families, they eventually moved off from this area around the Nukunu mission. Some went south to Point Pearce area, others went north to Port Augusta, and they had to follow the work, because during the 1940s and 50s though, a lot of our people were starting to get formal labouring jobs and things like that, so they moved away from here, but a lot of them do come back now that we've got native title. Yeah, when I said that I've lived a fortunate life, I have. I'm very proud of my children, what they've done. I'm proud of my wife, and I know that as a Stolen Generation member, You know, from my early years, I've turned my life right around, and I'm so proud of myself. I'm also proud that my children, they show me a lot of respect, and I'm so happy about it.